So, A Marvellous Light is a fantasy romance novel set in the Edwardian period of London, and it centres around the story of Robin, who is an ordinary man who takes on a government position, which is essentially a liaison with the secret magical side of society, in which he comes into contact with Edward, and together the two are forced to solve a mystery. When I first heard the plot of this book, I was a bit unsure because I'm not a big fan of period pieces to begin with. Things like period dramas and stuff like that there don't usually appeal to me, but I liked the idea of the magical element within this book, and obviously I'm a big fan of mystery elements as well, and it kind of gave me almost like a Harry Potter kind of vibe, so I of course had to pick it up, and it helped as well that this is a male-male romance, and the two leads in this are actually very, very entertaining together as a couple. I will put a disclaimer in here that the writing style in this can be a bit difficult to get into. It's one of those ones where you kind of need to slow your reading pace down a bit just so you can properly understand what the characters are saying and sort of understand what they're saying in the context of this world. But if I was to describe this book in one word, I would sort of describe it as charming. Honestly, the characters and the events they go through and the people that they meet are generally very, very entertaining, and there is a certain charm and nostalgia to the writing in here and to the story and the setting and the world. I have to say that Freya's magic system in this is very, very entertaining, and I'm very glad that we see the magic system primarily through the character of Edward. Sorry, not Edward, Edwin. I'm starting to read Twilight, so that's why that's stuck in my head. But Edwin is essentially a extremely weak magic user with incredible intellect, who basically finds more efficient and interesting ways to use his magic as a result of the fact that he has so little of it to begin with. So he has to basically train himself to be more conservative with his magic and to use it in more useful and basically efficient ways. Marske does a very good job in flushing out the magic system in our world. I have to say it's one of my favourite that I've come across in fiction in recent years. It does feel a bit unique, but in a way it's a bit hard to describe. It's one of those things where it's best just to read through it and then you'll kind of understand what I'm talking about. But like I said, Edwin is a great viewpoint for us to experience the magic. One of the main highlights of this book has to be the relationship that you have between Robin and Edwin. It's just very, very entertaining, and the two have this sort of kind of hostile banter that they have going on back and forth. And as the book goes on, you kind of see that they're starting to set that aside and open up to each other a little more. And in that, you begin to see the romantic relationship start to blossom. And all this while they're tracking down the major mystery of the story, which again is also very well done and very, very entertaining. And it makes for a really easy read because you're obviously wanting to know more about the mystery, but you also want to see more about Edwin and Robin's relationship as it begins to develop. And she's done this extremely well. The characteristics that both of the main leads have, they sort of cover each other's weaknesses in certain points and sort of make themselves almost like a complete person when put together, and that really works for the romantic element of the book. And I do have to say as well that the romance in this book is done very, very well. It doesn't feel cheap or forced, and the warmth and the emotional relationship that the two characters build together feels very, very authentic, and it makes it a lot easier to read, and you just do really root for these two to come together in the end, and it's just a very well done romance. She definitely knows what she's doing in this. But if I was to say there is a bad point of this book, I would say that like I mentioned at the start, the writing style can be a bit jarring at first. And the pacing is a little strange, a bit slow at the start, which I can forgive because of the world building and because the rest of the book then goes on at a very nice pace. Apart from that there's not really much else to say about the book in terms of that. It would definitely be the biggest turn off for a lot of people, which is usually why I don't read sort of period piece books and stuff like that, it's because I don't really enjoy that reading style, so I don't. And really, there's not much else to really say about this book. It's a really fun read. It's a great fantasy romance novel, and it's something just very enjoyable and light to read. I do enjoy the magic system in this book. I do think it's very well done. And I'm interested to read the next installment of this, but I have read reviews ahead of that, which suggests that the writing quality sort of dips a little bit in the second book, and it's not as entertaining in terms of the characters. However, I will be giving it a try anyway. But as for this book, I enjoyed it for what it is. It does have its faults, but I still think it is definitely worth a read, and I would give it a 4 out of 5. And speaking of male romance books, I'm deciding to go through all the books by TJ Klune that I've read. I'm waiting for his new book, Somewhere Beyond the Sea, and I can't wait to start reading that. So in honour of that, I'm going to do a lot more reviews around the books that I've read of his. Obviously, I've done his Wolf Creek series so far, and I've also done a lot of his other works as well, including The Extraordinaries, and some additional stuff as well. So I will be reviewing that stuff, and keep an eye out for those coming free as well.